All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is hour 3 of our day-long gaming marathon here out of the Paizo conference room in support of the Paizo Dynamite Pathfinder Worldscape Ultimate Crossover Humble Bundle. I want to thank you for watching that last game that I was running as kind of a Worldscape game with different fun characters like John Carter of Mars and Tarzan and Red Sonja. We'll have all the games archived on YouTube just in a couple of days. But for now, we're live here out of the office, and I'm joined by Christopher Paul Carey, our senior editor here at Paizo. I've got a couple of questions that Dan Tharp has gathered for us that came up during the last stream, and Chris is here because Chris has written comics in the Worldscape line for the previous Humble Bundle that we did. He did a Tarzan comic that's really great. And for this one, he's done a brand new Dejah Thoris comic. So before we get too much into specific questions from the audience or discussions about that, I did kind of want to go over one more time sort of why we're doing this and what this is all about. So this Humble Bundle is a way to raise funds for a charity called Camden's Concert that supports cystic fibrosis research. And that's a very important charity for me because my nephew has cystic fibrosis, and it came as a bit of a shock to our family. And it's really been interesting to watch throughout the 9 years that he's been alive, you know, the advances that medicine has made in treating that condition. And so so we just want to kind of do something to help other kids in a similar situation. And because Dynamite has been doing such cool and awesome stuff with the Worldscape crossovers, and really just the awesome stuff that Dynamite does on their own, we wanted to partner up with them and offer a bunch of cool Worldscape themed stuff for you guys to pick up. I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking specifically about the $45 tier for this Humble Bundle, because that's where the really exciting stuff comes in. Not only do you get all the stuff at the $29 tier and the other tiers as part of your $45 donation, but you also get these 4 miniatures that are the Pathfinder Worldscape miniatures. They're really high quality sculpts in resin from our friends over at Ninja Division. These things were released in extremely limited quantities at Gen Con this year, and they're going to be available through the Humble Bundle as well. So you're going to get the 4 Worldscape miniatures. Each of those things sells for like $10-15 on their own. You're going to get a special Starfinder preview miniature that ties in with the Starfinder Kickstarter that's going on right now for Starfinder miniatures through Ninja Division. And you're going to get 4 brand new print copies of some new Pathfinder Worldscape comics. So those comics are Pathfinder Worldscape Reanimator one-shot, Pathfinder Worldscape Vampirella one-shot, Pathfinder Worldscape Swords of Sorrow one-shot, and the Chris Carey authored Pathfinder Worldscape Dejah Thoris one-shot. Chris, can you tell us a little bit about the Dejah Thoris story and what that's all about?
Yeah, this is basically the story of how Dejah Thoris.
Dejah Thoris.
That's how Edgar Rice Burroughs pronounced it.
That's good to know.
How she gets into the Worldscape. So it's going to have, if you know your Edgar Rice Burroughs, it's going to have Tars Tarkas, it's going to have Kaldanes in it, it's going to have Hormeds, which are kind of these mutant synthetic people, and it's going to have Malagors, which are kind of flying lizard creatures.
Yeah, which I mentioned in the game, actually.
Yeah.
So it's going to be cool to see those in action in the comic.
And, of course, Pathfinder, where it's going to be going up against a Technic League captain.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
if you can imagine Dejah Thoris going up against
I've read the script, and it's awesome. So, yeah, it's Chris. I brought Chris into the project because Chris has got a real love for Edgar Rice Burroughs in particular, and he really nailed the Tarzan issue from the previous Humble Bundle that we did. And so when I knew there was going to be a Burroughs one-shot in this one, I was like, oh, we got to get Chris on this thing. And Chris delivered a script that has got so much Burroughs stuff in it. It was like shocking. There's an opening page, a splash page in there with like a big flyer getting attacked by, all kinds of different creatures, and there's like, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, there's no way the artist is going to pull this off. And we just got the art yesterday, and the artist pulled it off. It looks awesome. So really, really cool. Thrilled to have Chris on board with this thing. What's your connection to Edgar Rice Burroughs?
So I've been a fan of Erik Mona since I was a kid. When I was 12 years old, I read Princess of Mars, and it just kind of blew up in the door. And I mean, that's why I'm a writer today, because of Burroughs. I wanted to be able to write stuff like that, and I've actually had the opportunity to work in some of Burroughs' worlds, or tangentially too. I co-authored a novel with science fiction author Philip is a farmer called The Song of Quasin, which was in his Ancient Opar series. And Burroughs fans will know that Opar is a lost city from the Tarzan novels, and Farmer had written a series that posited that Opar was part of a larger civilization back in ancient times, and he wrote a series set back in ancient times, so it's Ancient Opar. So I had permission to write that, and then more recently, I have written an authorized installment in Erik Burroughs' Moon series.
The Moon Maid.
The Moon Maid, the Moon Men, and the Red Hawk. This will be called Swords Against the Moon Men. It's coming out from Erik Burroughs Incorporated later this year. So,
great. Yeah. That is very, very exciting. So Chris's Dejah Thoris comic, plus the 3 other comics that I mentioned written by me, are available in physical form. This will be the only way that you can get them physically, or rather, there may be some available on Paizo.com later, but this is never going to be in stores. And this bundle includes the digital versions of your Tarzan comic from last time, and the other 3 specials that we did there as well. There's a bunch of tactical maps, digital tactical maps. There's a bunch of Pathfinder stuff. Dynamite's really stepped up to the plate with some amazing compilations and things. So you've got, for example, the entire Swords of Sorrow crossover that Gail Simone architected a few years back, that has pretty much all of Dynamite's major female protagonists teaming up in this cool world-spanning crossover. You've got the first 7 issues of the original Warren run of Vampirella, which, if you haven't read that original Vampirella stuff, it's more than just kind of a cheesecake. It's got really cool old horror stories, kind of like eerie and creepy. It's from Warren, the same publisher there. So they've thrown those things in. Pretty much if the character features in any of the Worldscape stuff, there's at least one story arc in here of digital comics. There's more than $500 worth of Pathfinder RPG stuff and Dynamite comics that you can get at any number of these levels. But at the $45 level, you get these 4 figures, you get the 5th Starfinder preview figure that's exclusive to this campaign, and you get 4 comics. I mean, like, that level alone, you're looking at what, 10, 20, 30, 40, $50 worth of figures. The comics themselves are, $15. They're limited editions. So I mean, there's a ton of value there. And on top of all that physical stuff, you get all the digital stuff as well. So you get tons and tons of material. And so we're really excited to bring that to you. And thank you guys again for your support. Every contribution helps, and it's just a great way to raise some money for charity. And frankly, I'm just enjoying playing games on the dime here at work. So it's great to have you guys here. Now, Dan Tharp, our social media guy, has been collecting questions throughout the chat. He gave me those questions on his iPhone, which of course is locked, and now I can't read them. But I can remember a few of them. So Chris, could you hand that back to Dan? And Dan, you could just yell out some questions for me. One of the questions that I remember seeing on there is, how's this Humble Bundle different from previous Humble Bundles we did? Earlier in the year, or last year, we did a different Worldscape Humble Bundle. The difference is that this is a larger amount of stuff. In particular, the comic side is really got some awesome material that has not been a part of previous Humble Bundles. You've got Reanimator comics, you have Vampirella comics, you have that massive Swords of Sorrow. I mean, that thing is like tons of issues. There's all kinds of tie-in issues and everything as well. So that's really, really cool. I'm very excited about that. A lot of that stuff I've read as sort of preparation for writing these characters, and Dynamite does a great job with these licensed characters. So you're getting hundreds of dollars worth of comic books, especially if you lock in at that $45 tier where you get everything underneath it. So that's very exciting. The Pathfinder offerings this time are very different as well. We do have kind of the core rulebook and the beginner box digital edition. Just ways to kind of get involved in the game. But we also have 26 brand new scenarios from the Year of the Risen Rune that have never been part of a Humble Bundle. We have the entire Mass of the Living God, Crypt of the Everflame, the original trilogy of adventures long out of print for the Pathfinder role-playing game. We've got all kinds of stuff that has never been a part of any Humble Bundle before. And so we're thrilled to bring new stuff to you guys. We're thrilled to bring out-of-print stuff to you guys that you can't otherwise get in stores. And just it's a bigger and better bundle than we've ever done before. And I'm most excited about it. Again, I hate to come off as a nerd, but I'm a big nerd. And I'm a big nerd for miniatures. And I said it once before, but I have been looking my whole life for, Barsoomians, for like Forearms, Green Martians, for John Carter. And we really hope that this is the beginning of actually a line of Pathfinder Worldscape miniatures. So if there's enough support for this, and maybe you're like me, and you always wanted to do like, I want a band of like red Martian soldiers, or I want a Dejah Thoris miniature, or like Red Sonja's had so many cool different outfits and cool villains and monsters and things. It'd be so cool to get some of those things in miniatures. This is a way we're going to make that happen. So with your support, and if you can show us that there's enough support for little gaming figurines based on some of the coolest characters from pulp history, from comics history, we and Dynamite are very excited to make those things. I'm tired of kind of the gatekeepers in the industry sort of being like, well, no one's really going to buy those. We want to give people a chance to prove that there is a market for this stuff. So with your $45 pledge, you can help us to prove that, and there will be more Worldscape figures in the future. So I'm just thrilled with these. I'm thrilled with the quality of sculpts that we've gotten from Ninja Division. The sculpting is already done. They've done one round of these things. So when we say these things are going to deliver in the first quarter of 2018, I have every confidence in the world that that's the case. And we're just very, very excited about this whole project. And it's great to have you guys along with us. Again, you get to decide how much of your contribution goes to charity. And so it's just a cool way to get a whole bunch of gaming stuff, a whole bunch of awesome comic book stuff. And $45, really isn't that much money to get all that stuff. Of course, there are lower tiers if you just want a fraction of what's on offer, but it's more than $500 worth of gaming and comic stuff, which is a great value for only $45. So, Dan, can you shoot us a couple other questions that came up during that last one, or that have coming up in the chat room now?
Yeah, I've got one which I think is a good one to start with.
Okay.
So, pretend I don't know anything about Worldscape.
All right.
How would you pitch it to me, and why would tabletop gamers get into it?
Okay, great question. So, Pathfinder Worldscape is kind of like when you're a little kid and you want to play with your action figures and you put all of them in a big pile. So maybe some of them are Star Wars, maybe some of them are G.I. Joe, maybe some of them are whatever, He-Man, bad scale. But you've got a bunch of different stuff, and it's fun sometimes to cross up genres. It's fun sometimes to be like, well, what would happen if a 15th level Pathfinder fighter you went up against a giant four-armed Barsoomian white ape, so many of these brands and these worlds that Dynamite has doing comics are filled with just the exact type of stuff that we want as gamers. Cool heroic player characters, villainous NPCs, amazing monsters. Like again, the Burrow stuff, so many cool monsters. You've got your Banths, you've got your Thoats, you've got your Barsoomian white apes, you have your Hormads, you have your Malagors. So one of the things that is just cool on its face is just throwing all these different worlds together and seeing what happens when characters from these different worlds, kind of collide. But what's really cool about these comics from a gamer's perspective are really two things. Each one of these issues has like a 4 to 6 page back matter section that gives game stats for the Pathfinder role-playing game for these characters. These are official statistics. So if you wanted to know if like John Carter could beat Red Sonja, you can fight them together. And at the $45 level, you can even literally jam the miniatures together and have them fight on your table. But you get this game statistics. You get this special abilities. I mentioned a little bit in the previous game, one thing that's common about John Carter, Tars Tarkas, Red Sonja, and Tarzan is that they don't wear a lot of armor. And in the traditional Pathfinder rules, the way you get a better armor class is you throw on more armor. And I knew that when we were doing the official adaptations of these characters, that wasn't going to work. So for each of these comics, I actually created for each of these characters, I created a specific archetype that speaks to the abilities that they have in the Dynamite comics and in the source material which they're originally drawn from. So for example, with John Carter and Tars Tarkas, I've created a fighter archetype called the Warlord that lets you run around without without armor, and gives you certain other powers that are keyed from the Burroughs material. So these two guys, the Warlord archetype. Red Sonja runs around and is wearing essentially a chainmail bikini, frankly, and that's not tremendously realistic, nor is it really fit in with the way the Pathfinder rules work. So I created a new archetype for her that is a Sword Devil archetype. So that's a Ranger archetype, because if you read Red Sonja's origin, which is included in this bundle in Red Sonja 1 through 6 by Gail Simone, you'll see that even as a young girl, Red Sonja was great with a bow and arrow, was a top hunter in her tribe, and so that is a Ranger archetype called the Sword Devil that lets you really kick ass with swords and uses your charisma and your dexterity more heavily when it comes to armor class, because you're not wearing armor. Then you've got Tarzan, and I created a new archetype for Tarzan that's the Jungle Lord archetype. So it allows you to, brachiate, swing through the trees, gives you other nature-based powers, and that is a Ranger archetype as well. So 3 new archetypes for martial characters who I often feel don't get enough love really in the archetype department anyway. And even though each one of those 3 archetypes has specific things, like the Warlord allows you to make characters very much like John Carter, the Sword Devil allows you to make characters very much like Red Sonja, or frankly a lot of Red Sonja's opponents in the various Red Sonja adventures. And then Tarzan, you can do stuff that makes you awesome with animals and a Jungle Lord stuff, but they're all allowing you to play characters that are not heavily laden with armor. I said it in the previous stream, I'll say it again. My goal is to make Pathfinder Worldscape the Citizen Kane of no armor martial archetypes. So in addition to those archetypes, you get the stat blocks for all those characters. There's stat blocks for creatures as well in some of these. And then in every single Pathfinder Worldscape issue, in fact in every Pathfinder comic book by Dynamite, there is a pull-out poster map. And in the case of these digital things, you'll get the digital poster map that you can print out and use yourself. So every single one of these comic books has a short little encounter or encounter area that on the flip side has got a really cool piece of art, maybe a cover piece or something like that. So if you're just a comics fan and you like awesome comics art, you've got a little poster you can put on your wall. If you're a gamer, you've got a poster map you can use for an encounter. If you're both, you can buy 2, and or if you have the digital, you can print both sides.
And if you're an Edgar Rice Burroughs fan, the
Yes.
one that I designed for my Tarzan comic has the Temple of the Sun from Opar, and it's done exactly how Burroughs described it.
Exactly, and when you get Christopher Paul Carey on the job, it's exactly how Burroughs. I mean, he knows it's pronounced Dejah, Thoris, for God's sake. Not many people know that, so that's great. So maps, encounters, archetypes, character write-ups, some special equipment like Thark rifles and radium pistols and stuff like that. So really trying to, especially with these Worldscape things, because the worlds that we've brought into this are so rich with neat stuff that's a little bit oftentimes just sort of tangential to what's already available in Pathfinder books. So we've got guns and things, but we don't have radium guns. We have you can play a half orc, but you can't play a 4-armed Barsoomian green Martian, and you can if you get Pathfinder Worldscape number 3, which is included in this collection. So that is kind of a good summary of why gamers might want it. With this bundle, you're getting dozens and dozens of these maps. You're getting dozens of issues, not just of Worldscape, but of other Pathfinder comics as well, and those each have all the things that I've been talking about. So a lot of stuff. And then again, why would a gamer get this? Well, at the $45 level, you get 5 awesome gaming figures. So, Dan, other question?
Let's go with what are your thoughts on the John Carter and or Legend of Tarzan movies?
Ooh, I think that's one for you.
Okay.
Chris.
I actually loved both of the movies. They're not exactly like Burroughs, but I thought they captured the spirit of Burroughs. Both of them are heavily romance movies, which is actually very true to Burroughs. Every single one of his novels has a romance storyline in it, very heavily, very prominently in the plot. So I thought that was very authentic, and they handled it well. And I thought there was a chemistry, in particular, between the leads in both of those movies, between John Carter and Dejah Thoris, and Tarzan and Jane in Legend of Tarzan. So I enjoyed them. I wish that the landscape had been a little more reddish in John Carter. Some little quibbles like that. I thought the Green Martians were pretty cool.
What do you think of Woola?
Woola was great.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah. I liked it.
Some people complained about the Green Martians, saying, "Oh, they should have been bigger, or bulkier, or heavier, or whatever." But if you actually look at how Burroughs describes their weight in relation to like the Barsoomian, the gravity on Mars versus the gravity on Earth, he talks about how they would be crushed by the gravity on Earth. But I can't remember the exact weight that he gives, but it's pretty dead on for what.
Yeah, he describes them as not particularly bulky.
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
tall but they're kind of lithe and stuff.
So
I learned that when I was researching how to write the stats for Pathfinder.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty authentic. I thought a lot of attention to detail there, and I thought there's a lot of good. I like their swords were really cool looking and interesting interpretation of the Barsoomian flyers, which are a little different from what I've seen elsewhere, but it was interesting.
I think I didn't see the Tarzan movie yet. I'm looking forward to seeing it, but I just missed it. The John Carter movie I liked as well. I think I didn't love the guy who actually played John Carter. I thought that there maybe could have been a more charismatic star there, and maybe that played into some of the marketing problem. Who knows, right? I think they probably should use the word Mars in the title of the book, or in the title of the movie. But I think for me, part of the John Carter of Mars thing, my reaction to it is it's painful because so obviously they were setting up Gods of Mars as a sequel, and Gods of Mars is my favorite Mars book and one of my favorite early science fiction books, period. It's amazing. I'm a big pulp collector, and so I'm reading all these pulps, and you read about, they do these little author spotlights of different, key authors like Edmund Hamilton or Henry Kuttner and people like that, and it's shocking how many of those writers cite Gods of Mars in particular as like the book that made them want to do science fiction, and it's with good reason. I mean, it's a phenomenal book, and so to come that close to a big budget Gods of Mars movie was a little discouraging.
Heartbreaking. Actually.
Different question, Dan?
Let's go with are there other literary characters that you would like to see added to Worldscape?
Oh boy. Well, the cool thing about this sort of salvo of 4 one-shots is that I've got the opportunity to bring in a couple more of Dynamite's cool characters into this. So when we were kind of bouncing around different characters that we might put into these 4 one-shots, I kind of almost immediately gravitated toward the Reanimator, Herbert West's. That character I find really amusing. He's not a hero, really, and in fact he's not a hero, he's like a villain, and I kind of like that type of approach. So, and just kind of putting, we've already got a character that essentially was invented by Robert E. Howard, we've got other characters that are invented by Edgar Rice Burroughs, and to add a Lovecraft character in there, I mean, it was just, I couldn't resist. I also had the opportunity, because I wanted to make sure there was Pathfinder in each of these stories as well. I was like, well, what's an appropriate Pathfinder character to partner with Herbert West? And I'm like, he probably needs like a lab assistant kind of a character. And as I was going through what I might select, just kind of for fun, I picked my character Gribbet, the goblin from Pathfinder Goblins #1, which was actually the first comic script I ever wrote. And so, I've got Herbert West reacting with this like goblin who his whole shtick is like he's all hopped up on intelligence potions and stuff, so he can be like the smartest mastermind goblin of all. And so the idea of this like goblin who's sort of addicted to intelligence serums, and this Reanimator who's a big serum guy in general, that just seemed too good to pass up. So Herbert West is a great one. Vampirella, of all things, I wasn't as knowledgeable about the character at the beginning of the process as I am now, having read through a lot of those original Vampirella stories by Archie Goodwin, who's like a big comic book hero of mine. Really good stuff. I like the whole supporting cast of the Van Helsings, and in particular the stage magician Pendragon, who features pretty prominently in my script. So that was a cool thing to include. And then Dejah Thoris is exciting, and then if you look at that with like, okay, we've got Dejah Thoris in here, we've got Red Sonja in here, and then we've got Vampirella in here. Those are sort of the 3 headliners of that Swords of Sorrow crossover. And then I got to bring in Gail Simone's character, the Traveler, who is a major protagonist in that Swords of Sorrow series. And we're talking about kind of a multiverse, and Dynamite has got, because they do a lot of these interesting crossovers, there is the makings of like a greater Dynamite multiverse in there, and we play with that a little bit in Worldscape, particularly in the 4 comics that are available at the $45 tier of this effort. And so, beyond that, some of the characters that I'd want to bring in, I'd love to bring Conan in. Dynamite doesn't have the rights to Conan, but to have Red Sonja and Conan together would be really great. You did something really interesting in your Dejah Thoris issue. You brought in Slopagus, the African warrior from the Alan Quatermain stuff.
I'm a big H. Rider Haggard fan as well as a Grace Burroughs fan. Kind of goes with the territory. And Slopagus is from H. Rider Haggard novel. Well, he's from multiple ones, but his origin story is told in a really great novel called Nada the Lily, which is a novel written in the 19th century, and it tells this, the story of this character, Slopagus, and it is an entirely Zulu cast, basically, which is very unusual for the time period. It's handled very well. Haggard had lived in Africa and had a lot of exposure to the Zulus, and so I wanted to bring this character in because he's such a great character, such a proud character, and an amazing warrior, and so I thought it was interesting to bring him in, have a little tension between him and Dejah Thoris at the beginning, but they're ultimately on the same side.
Yeah.
So.
And it was interesting to me because so I knew you were putting him in there, and then as we were working with Dynamite to decide what comics to put in this bundle, one of the things I wanted to include was kind of the first sort of big crossover, at least the first one that I'm aware of that Dynamite did, which was called Prophecy, and it was kind of tying in with the whole Mayan 2012 thing, and the villain was Kulan Gath, who's the same villain in Pathfinder Worldscape, and interestingly enough, Alan Quatermain is in that story, along with like Sherlock Holmes and Watson, and it was cool, so it's like you've got Slopagus in your comic, and then you have Alan Quatermain in that comic, and so it's just kind of a cool H. Rider Haggard thing. So, another question, Dan?
Yes, let's go to another question.
Okay.
Let's see. So we're kind of getting into more of the game.
Great, yeah. I think that Chris and I could go on forever about pulp nerd. Let's talk about Pathfinder.
So how often do you get to GM? And honestly, you have to repeat the questions.
Yeah.
I'm getting that it's a little bit hard.
We'll repeat the questions.
How often do you get to GM games yourself?
Okay.
And kind of a sub question of that is how many of your home games end up as Paizo products?
Okay, that's interesting. So lately I've been playing more than GMing. So Jason Bullman, the lead designer of Pathfinder, runs a weekly Monday night game that I'm in every Monday. I've been playing Brother Cahill Duncan, who's now about a 15th level cleric of Iomedae. He's gotten over a couple years worth of stress eating, and he's now healthy and hale, taking the fight to the cult of Razmir in Jason's campaign, which I should mention, Social Media Dan here is also in as an awesome rogue character. So I've been doing more playing in that arena lately. In terms of running games, I run games at conventions. I run games every so often at home. I'm gearing up to start up another campaign. I have an on-again, off-again campaign I run called Kings of Absalom with different groups of friends, running kind of the same adventure. It's interesting to see how different people attack the same stuff. I've run that many, many, many times. And so, the answer is I don't get to GM as often as I would like, but I get to GM fairly often, and I get to play even more often. I'm playing at least weekly, and I just love gaming, and so it's a great way to kind of have fun and sort of do work at the same time. And the reason I say that is because the second part of the question is how much stuff from my own campaigns ends up making it into Pathfinder, and the answer there is a fair amount, but not as much as I might want, and the reason being is that I've got whole notebooks worth of stuff that I'm kind of waiting until I've got enough. So like I'd love to publish the Kings of Absalom game, for example, and I just want to get a little bit more down before I'm able to do that. But I've got probably what amounts to 3 Adventure Path volumes worth of material ready to go, ready to start development into a professional thing. But haven't done that yet. My big character that I played for years and years in James Jacobs' Office campaign was a barbarian called Ostog the Unslain. He made 17 levels without dying and without wearing any armor. And this was before we had all the archetypes for Pathfinder Worldscape. So, but I was able to kind of browbeat Jason Bullman, who shouldn't escape notice reports to me. But I was able to make him create the Savage Barbarian archetype that's in the Advanced Player's Guide, and that was specifically for my shirtless, barbarian character. And so just stuff that is inspired by characters I play or stuff that's from my own campaign does make it into the game, but I am kind of like keeping my powder dry to unleash Kings of Absalom at one point, and that will be like the mother lode of my stuff. From an actual game. Lots of stuff that I created for the campaign setting, like Cheliax or Iomade, all come from fiction stuff I've been working on before, or just short-lived campaigns and stuff. But that all predates Pathfinder, so I'm just going to pretend like that's outside the realm of this question. Chris, how about you?
I'm more of a player, so that's mainly what I've been doing.
Cool.
So I've run a few games at like PaizoCon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Might be cool to do like one set in Opar someday.
That'd be really cool.
But right now I've been more of a player. So.
Well, and Chris mentions PaizoCon, which, by the way, is an event that we do every May in here in Seattle. Mm-hmm. And kind of the whole point of that is to come and play with the staff. We're super accessible. We all run games. We all do a thing called the Delve, where we like sit in front of a bunch of terrain and run just fights for everyone who comes up and has time to play, and then we all go to the bar and hang out together. So if you've never been to PaizoCon, I highly recommend it. It's really, really fun. Dan?
Yes. Let's go with... I had one of my phone shut off. Hang on.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the process.
Okay, so... let's go with this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to repeat the question.
Be happy to repeat the question.
People have been seeing a lot of hate for Ninja Division in
Ah.
our minis.
Yeah.
And I got a couple of times why we chose them
Okay.
to go with our Starfighter minis.
All right, so the question is, the company that has produced the Pathfinder Worldscape miniatures is a company called Ninja Division, and they are also our partners with a Kickstarter that is currently going on called Starfinder Masterclass Miniatures. It's been quite successful. I hope you check it out. There's a link to it in the description of the Starfinder miniature that is part of the $45 tier here on Humble Bundle. And they shortly after we launched that Starfinder campaign, a number of customers came and posted on the comments threads about some previous campaigns that Ninja Division had run, or rather that a sister company of theirs, Soda Pop Miniatures, had run, that had run into some various problems with fulfillment and stuff like that. And candidly, there were more of those complaints than there were more of those campaigns than we were aware of at the time when we set up the deal. But why we set up the deal with Ninja Division is kind of twofold. When it came to doing miniatures for Starfinder, of course, the first folks we reached out to were the companies that we've already partnered with. That's Reaper with Pathfinder Miniatures and WizKids with Pathfinder Battles. Both of them have been long-term great partners for us in the miniature space. We're close friends with everybody involved in those companies. But for whatever reason, neither of them were particularly interested in making Starfinder miniatures. And part of me understands why. Sci-fi has always been considered to be a smaller genre than fantasy in the RPG arena. And they are both huge companies with lots of other projects that they're working on. So they had to balance doing a new miniatures line with some of their other, in the case of WizKids with Marvel and with other Pathfinder releases that they're doing. And in the case of Reaper, they've got a bunch of other stuff that they're doing as well. And so I can't get into the heads of our partners as much as I might like to sometimes, but the fact of the matter is the two of them passed. And so we started looking at who we knew in the industry, who we respected as people and as business folks, and who we knew would do great work. And we'd been familiar for long periods of time with Ninja Division and with some of the miniatures that they'd made for like Aliens and Predator and stuff like that. And we know those guys personally, and we are confident that they can deliver really kick-ass figures. And if you look at the figures that are part of the $45 tier here in to this week's Humble Bundle, they're beautiful. I mean, they're really, really, really well done. So the quality of sculpting, the quality of output is just superlative with the stuff that they've made for us so far. And so, we've been working on getting the Worldscape figures put together, working on the Starfinder figures for a long, long time. And some of the challenges that they hit with some of their other projects happened, in between when we started, working with them and the launch of the Kickstarter. And, I've talked to those guys about some of the issues, and they've had things ranging from serious health problems on behalf of some members of their staff to, some supplier issues or whatnot. I do think it's important to note that for the Starfinder Kickstarter, we're talking about just miniatures. A lot of the other Kickstarters that these guys have done are games, and so they'd launch games and they'd like put out playtest versions, and then the backers would give them feedback and they'd say, wow, good feedback, we need to kind of go back to the drawing board to redo some of these game rules and stuff. There are no game rules with the Starfinder miniatures. They're just miniatures. Ninja has already proven that they were able to produce some Starfinder figures and some Worldscape figures for us at Gen Con. The quality is exceptional. And I have every faith that they're going to do great work. And I think one of the things that has become clear, and that to them, I think it's always been pretty clear to Paizo, is that when it comes to communication, with your fans and with your backers, honesty is the best policy. And I think that I can't help but draw a little bit of an analogy as an editor. When I have a freelancer who's writing a book for me or something, and then they're going to be late. There may be very good reasons why they're late, but if they don't tell me, and if they're just quiet, then I assume the worst, and I assume that I'm not going to get the material, and I'm going to get screwed. And even if there's good reasons, not communicating is just horrible. And it's very much not the Paizo way of doing business. I like to think that we've got some of the best customer service in the game industry, and that is a reputation that's earned through action. And I think what Ninja Division is learning through the reaction to some of these frustrated backers of previous programs is that even with great reasons for it, you can't go dark for months at a time, not giving people updates. And so we've seen since the launch of our campaign an attempt by Ninja kind of across the board to increase their communications on some of their older unfulfilled Kickstarters, giving updates, showing in-process photographs, stuff like that. And why they haven't been doing that, you'll have to ask them. I'm sure they're very busy. There's a convention season, all that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, when it comes to communicating with your customers, all that stuff's just excuses. And I think that they have stepped up to the plate, or they're attempting to step up to the plate to make it right and to share more about the process of of their various projects. I have faith in their ability to make beautiful miniatures. I have faith in their ability to deliver, a reasonable rate or a reasonable time, that what they've said that they're going to do on the Starfinder campaign. And frankly, as the licensor, we're going to be holding them to those assumptions. And we are going to be working with them every day, just as we've been talking to them pretty much every day since the launch of the Starfinder Masterclass Kickstarter, to make sure that the communication is up to par. And so, we are working with them to develop products to the standards that Paizo holds for our products. And at least so far, I am confident that they're going to be able to do that, and that they're the right partner for this job. Dan?
Okay, let's go with first of all, this is a quick one. Is Ostog still unslain?
Oh, is my character Ostog the Unslain, is he still unslain? The answer is yes! Of course he's still unslain. James's campaign ended about a year ago at this very table, and it was a touch and go there at the end, but Ostog managed to survive, and because I played him 17 levels and 3 mythic tiers over the course of probably since 2008, I'm never playing him again. He's safe. He is safe. He's unslain. It's over. No more Ostog. I just sat in on a fun game with our friends over at the Glass Cannon podcast when I was at New York Comic Con on Saturday, and they'll be broadcasting that, I think, starting today, actually, or maybe next Wednesday for their Patreon supporters. And I was tempted to make Ostog the Unslain because I love playing him and everything, but I'm like, wait, Troy Joe could kill him. And then I'd have to change his name, and I didn't want to undo what I was able to survive for 8 years. So no, he's retired. He is unslain. He will never be slain, and that's it. So a couple more questions. We got about 10 minutes.
Okay, yeah, we've got, let's go with, which is your favorite Pathfinder or I assume Starfinder book that is not a core rule book?
My favorite Pathfinder book that is not... let me look at their shelf. There's a lot of them, actually. I mean, I really thought the Technology Guide was an interesting one for us. The Technology Guide we published around the same time we did the Iron Gods Adventure Path, and it gave a bunch of technological weapons and jetpacks and stuff like that within the context of the Pathfinder rules. And it actually blew up. People really loved it. It sold very, very well, and it was one of the indicators that we had that Starfinder might actually be a success. And so I think that because it was a little bit of an outlier and something that we didn't know how people would respond, but people ended up responding so positively toward it, at least for right now, I'm going to say that's my favorite. How about you, Chris?
Are we talking hardcovers? Or, no,
I think we're talking about anything.
So,
yeah,
Technology Guide. So, I really liked recent book we did, Aquatic Adventures. I've always, that was actually one of the things that I had suggested in a few of the developer meetings when we were tossing around ideas to do an underwater book. And Heart of the Jungle, which is actually in the...
Yeah, it's in the bundle.
In the bundle.
Time. Yeah.
So I like all the Mwangi stuff. And
so that's the guide to the jungle area of the Pathfinder world. Yeah.
So those are up there.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Dan?
That's kind of it, I guess.
That's kind of it. All right, so let me just one more time go through kind of the bundle here and what we're doing. You can choose to support at any level from $1 all the way up to as high as you want to go. The highest tier is at $45. I highly recommend that you check out that $45 tier. You probably can't see how amazingly awesome these figures are from as far away as we are. Maybe if with Dan's indulgence I may put one up right close to the screen, even that might fuzz out, who knows. But these sculpts are amazing. These sculpts are some of my favorite sculpts of any Pathfinder related figures that we've ever done before, and that's saying a lot. So 45. Yeah.
When I was at Gen Con and they debuted these figures, I gobbled them up.
Yeah, you want to give it a shot?
I mean, Thoris Tarkus.
Thoris Tarkus.
Thoris
Tarkus. It's the legendary green Martian of Barsoom. Hopefully you're getting a crisp image as Dan shows that thing off. But I love the figures. And for $45, you get 5 figures. You couldn't buy these 5 figures for $45 on their own. He's kind of spazzing out there a little bit. But you couldn't buy for $45, you couldn't get these figures at all. To say nothing of the more than $500 worth of Pathfinder products and Dynamite comics. So Dynamite has really stepped up with some amazing comic books in this thing. We've put a bunch of our favorite products. Now almost all of them are out of print, so there's no way to get these things outside of digital. And this is just a way to get them at a price that works for you. So please do give us support. Please do be as generous as you can. You can decide how you want to split up your money. There's a slider bar at the bottom of the page. We've got all kinds of more gaming coming up throughout the day. Coming up next is going to be Owen Stevens, who's going to be running Starfinder. And then after the Starfinder game, the Starfinder team will come in and do a Q&A about Starfinder. So again, $45 level gets you the 5 figures, gets you 4 brand new Pathfinder Worldscape comics with RPG appendices, with pull-out poster maps, and with, I believe Dynamite's even going to do a certificate of authenticity because, as it turns out, these things are extremely limited edition. Last time they did this with our previous Worldscape bundle several months ago, the comics, which you wrote, the Tarzan one, the covers are real nice hardcover stock, very high quality printing and everything. I mean, it really feels like a special comic. And so you're going to get 4 special comics, 4 pull-out poster maps, 4 RPG appendices, 5 figures, all of whom have stats in Pathfinder Worldscape 1 through 6, which is also part of this bundle. So you get not just the Thoris Tarkus miniature, but you get Thoris Tarkus' statistics. You don't just get the John Carter miniature, you get John Carter's statistics. You don't just get Red Sonja miniature, you get Red Sonja's statistics. And you don't just get Tarzan's miniature, you get Tarzan's statistics too. On top of that, you get the archetypes so that you can make your own heroes in the model of these characters. You also get old Vampirella archive comics. You get the Swords of Sorcery, Swords of Sorrow crossover. You get the Prophecy crossover. You get key story arcs from Dejah Thoris, from Red Sonja, from pretty much all of the stars, Reanimator, Vampirella, all the stars of these Pathfinder Worldscape comics. You're going to get the comics as well. You're also going to get a 26 adventure bundle of Pathfinder Society adventures. You're going to get the first trilogy of adventures from Pathfinder. That's Crypt of the Everflame, Mask of the Living God, and City of Golden Death. Some of our best reviewed and most played and most favorite adventures that we've ever published. You're going to get Heart of the Jungle. You're going to get a bunch of other supplements. You're going to get Blood of the Moon, and if you want to play a vampire like Vampirella, you get a whole book about how to play vampires. So we got all kinds of great stuff in here that thematically ties in with Pathfinder Worldscape. Again, almost everything in the bundle is out of print, so you're going to be able to get digital copies of these things at a price that works for you. But I really do hope that you jump in at that $45 value. And I'm not just saying that because I want to raise more money for charity. I'm just saying that because these figures are so awesome, you guys. And I really, really want to show I really want you guys to help us show that there's an audience for figures like this. I want to do more. I'd love to do Red Martian figures. I'd love to do, the Banth. I'd love to do I'd love to do the 4-armed Barsoomian ape. I mean, that's high on the list, right? So with your support at that $45 level, we will show that there is a market for these figures. We will do great work for cystic fibrosis research, and you guys will end up with an amazing pile of digital comics and digital Pathfinder stuff, and for limited edition, awesome Pathfinder Worldscape comics that Chris and I have poured our hearts into. So please give us your support. I hope you are going to stick around for the rest of the day. We've got some amazing games coming up. We got some fun Q&As, and I'll be checking in with you throughout the day to go over some more stuff about the bundle. And just thank you all for your time. It's great to have you here with us, and we'll see you next time. We'll take another break, and then in a few minutes we'll bring in Owen and the Starfinder gang for a 2-hour Starfinder game. We'll see you then.